The average American household spent over $1,000 more on groceries in 2023 than they did 3 years before. And the thing that went up the most? Produce, fresh vegetables, the stuff you're already trying to grow. Here's what nobody tells you though. Most home gardeners are still buying the exact vegetables that are the cheapest, easiest, and most ridiculously productive to grow themselves. Not because they don't want to grow them, because nobody sat them down and ran the actual math. That's what this video is. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly which 6 vegetables you should stop buying at the store, with the real numbers, not the vague, "oh, gardening saves money" stuff. We're talking specific cost per pound comparisons, how much space you actually need, and which ones give you the fastest return. So Wawenkwe, and here's the part I want you to stay for. At the very end of this video, I'm going to show you a companion planting trick so simple it almost seems stupid, but it can double the yield on 3 of the vegetables on this list without adding a single square foot of garden space. You've probably walked past the 2 plants you need at the grocery store 100 times and never thought to put them together. Stick around for that, because it genuinely changes the math. Let's get into it. Real quick, if you're into growing your own food, cutting your grocery bill, and skipping the gardening fluff that doesn't actually help, this channel is for you. Hit subscribe. We put out practical stuff every week.
Before we get started, be sure to check out the plants, tools, and products featured in this video. Everything you need is linked right in the description below.
Tip 6. Lettuce. Let's start with the one that physically hurts me every time I see it in a grocery cart. A single head of romaine at most grocery stores right now is sitting between $2.50 and $4, depending on where you live and whether it's organic. That's for one head, which, if you're making salads regularly, lasts you maybe 3 days. Here's why this one is so painful to buy. Lettuce is a cut-and-come-again crop, which means you don't harvest the whole plant. You take the outer leaves and the plant just keeps growing. One packet of seeds, we're talking $2 to $3, gives you anywhere from 100 to 500 seeds depending on the variety. If you succession plant, meaning you sow a few seeds every 2 weeks instead of all at once, you can have fresh lettuce continuously for 4 to 5 months from a single $2 packet. Take a look at this. What you're seeing here is a 2-foot by 4-foot raised bed section. That little rectangle of space can realistically produce 30 to 40 pounds of lettuce over a season. At current grocery prices, that's somewhere between $75 and $120 worth of produce, from a 2x4 patch. The catch people miss with lettuce is heat. Lettuce bolts, meaning it goes to seed and turns bitter, once temperatures consistently hit above 75 to 80 degrees. So, you're not growing this in July if you're in a hot climate. You grow it in the shoulder seasons, early spring and fall. I planted a flat of black-seeded Simpson one April and completely forgot about a corner of the bed. Walked out 3 weeks later and it looked like a small forest. I had more lettuce than my family could eat for a month. If you bolt your lettuce because you planted too late, you don't just lose the harvest. You've also let it go to seed in your bed, which can lead to volunteer seedlings competing with whatever you plant next. Time it right. That's number 6. 5 more to go, and they keep getting better. Tip 5. Herbs, specifically basil, cilantro, and parsley. I'm grouping these 3 because the math on all of them is almost identical, and the argument for growing your own is almost identical too. A small plastic clamshell of fresh basil at the grocery store, the kind that's barely enough to make 1 batch of pesto, runs about $3 to $5. Cilantro is $1.50 to $3. Parsley, same range. And here's the thing, those packages are almost always wilted by the time you get them home. Because fresh herbs start deteriorating the moment they're cut. Basil grown in a pot on your back step? You're harvesting it the moment you need it. The flavor isn't even in the same category. It's like comparing a photograph of a pizza to an actual pizza. One basil plant, properly maintained, and by properly maintained I just mean pinching off the flower heads when they appear, will produce for your entire summer. The mechanism here is straightforward. When you let basil flower, the plant thinks its job is done and starts putting all its energy into seed production. The leaves get smaller, the flavor decreases, and eventually the plant dies. Pinch the flowers, and you're telling the plant keep making leaves. The plant stays in a kind of productive adolescence all season. Cost to grow: seeing a 6-pack of basil transplants from a nursery is about $3 to $5. A packet of seed, even cheaper. One summer of fresh basil from that? Easy $40 to $60 of retail value, conservatively. Cilantro is slightly different. It bolts fast in heat, but it also self-seeds aggressively if you let a few plants go. I have a corner of my garden where I haven't planted cilantro in 3 years. It just keeps coming back. Every spring, there's a fresh flush of it. I did nothing. Tip 4. Zucchini. Okay, here's where the math gets almost embarrassing. Zucchini at the grocery store. $1 to $2 per pound, sometimes more at a farmer's market or specialty store. A single zucchini plant under normal growing conditions will produce 6 to 10 pounds of zucchini per week at peak season. Perdier's week. Distas saquezi. The joke in every gardening community is that you end up leaving bags of zucchini on your neighbors' porches in the middle of the night because you have more than you know what to do with. That joke exists because it is completely, literally true. I once put a bag of 12 zucchinis on my neighbor's porch with a note that said, "Please don't call the police." He laughed. He also took the zucchini. 1 plant. That's all you need. 2, if you want to be safe about pollination. Though zucchini is generally pretty reliable in that department. Here's the thing most newer gardeners don't know about zucchini. Size is the enemy of flavor. The giant baseball bat zucchinis you see at state fairs? Terrible to eat. Watery, bland, slightly spongy. Puestas. You want to harvest zucchini when they're 6 to 8 inches long. That's when the flavor is concentrated and the texture is right. The plant will also produce more consistently if you keep harvesting at this size, because once it sets a mature fruit, it starts slowing down production. Cost to grow: a packet of zucchini seeds, $2 to $3, gives you more seeds than you could realistically plant in 2 seasons. 2 plants, a sunny spot, consistent watering. That's the whole recipe. We're at tip 4. Right at the halfway point, which means it's time to remind you that bonus tip at the end, the companion planting trick that doubles the yield on 3 of these vegetables. We're getting there. Honestly, it might be the simplest thing in this entire video. Don't bail now. Tip 3. Tomatoes. I know, everyone grows tomatoes. Narty. But I'm putting them at number 3 because most people are still buying them at the store alongside their home garden tomatoes, and the reason why reveals something important about how to grow them better. Store tomatoes are picked green and ripened with ethylene gas during shipping. The result is a tomato that is red on the outside and essentially cardboard on the inside. You've tasted this. You know exactly what I'm talking about. A tomato ripened on the vine, harvested the day you eat it, is a different food. Not a slightly better version of the same food. A genuinely different experience. And once you've grown your own, the store version stops being an acceptable substitute. Now, here's the math. A pound of decent tomatoes at the grocery store. $2 to $4 for conventional, $4 to $6 for heirloom. Eat one indeterminate tomato plant, meaning a variety that keeps growing and producing all season rather than setting all its fruit at once, can realistically yield 10 to 20 pounds of fruit over a season under good conditions. Some varieties push higher. The mistake that costs gardeners the most yield with tomatoes is not pruning the suckers. Suckers are the new shoots that grow in the V between the main stem and a branch. If you leave all of them, you get a massive bushy plant with lots of foliage and less fruit, because the plant is spreading its energy thin. Pinch the suckers off, or, here's the specific part, let one sucker grow to create a second main stem, Then stake that one too and remove everything else. You get a 2-stem plant that's highly productive and easier to manage than a wild sprawling bush. You can also root those suckers you pinch off. Drop them in a glass of water, they root in about a week, and you've got free transplants. I started 6 plants last season from suckers I would have otherwise composted. Didn't cost me a thing. Skip the sucker pruning and you will end up with an impressive-looking plant and a genuinely disappointing harvest. The plant looks healthy. The yield does not match. Tip 2. Green beans. This one surprises people, and it shouldn't. Green beans at the store. $2 to $3 per pound, often more for the thin French-style ones. One 10-foot row of bush beans, not pole beans, just a simple single row, will yield roughly 8 to 12 pounds of beans over the season. Multiple succession plantings and you can stretch that out considerably. Dear Ga, the reason green beans are so undervalued as a grow-your-own crop is that they have a reputation for being boring. And store-bought green beans are boring. They're picked early for shelf life and shipped across the country in refrigerated trucks. A green bean you pick 10 minutes before dinner is snappy, sweet, and almost nutty. It's not the same vegetable. Here's the specific thing that most guides skip. Green beans are a direct sow crop only. Do not start them indoors. Do not buy transplants. They go directly in the ground after last frost, and they resent being moved. The seed-to-harvest window is about 50 to 60 days for most bush varieties, which means you can get 2 full successions in most climates. And here's the oddly specific detail that I promise will stick with you. When you're direct sowing beans, please pre-soak them for exactly 4 hours in room-temperature water before planting. Not overnight. Beans soaked too long can split and rot before they germinate. 4 hours. Then plant. Germination rate goes up noticeably, and you get more even emergence across the row. I learned this from an old-timer at a seed swap who had been growing beans for 40 years. Tested it myself that season. The pre-soaked half of my row came up in 5 days. The unsoaked half took 9. Same bed, same weather. That's tip 2. One more before the bonus, and the last one on the list is the one most people least expect to be here. Tip 1. Salad, greens / spinach / arugula, the specialty green category. Here we go. The one that genuinely makes me angry every time I'm in a grocery store. Those little plastic containers of arugula, baby spinach, mixed greens, you know the ones. Like 5-ounce containers for $4 to $6, sometimes more. And they're wilted by Thursday even if you bought them on Monday. Now, here's the thing about these greens. They are among the easiest, fastest growing vegetables that exist. Arugula goes from seed to harvest in about 21 days. Spinach, 30 to 40 days. Mesclun mix, similar. You can grow these in containers, in window boxes, in the narrow strip of ground next to a fence. They don't need much space. They don't need staking or pruning or much attention at all. 1 packet of mixed salad green seeds, $2 to $4. Contains hundreds of seeds. Plant a small patch, scatter sow them loosely, and start harvesting with scissors when they reach 3 to 4 inches tall. The cut and come again method, same as with lettuce, means that patch will regrow and give you multiple harvests from a single planting. Nay, here's the consequence of not knowing this. I watched a friend of mine spend $18 in a week on those plastic greens containers while simultaneously asking me why gardening was worth it. She had a perfectly good 4x4 raised bed sitting mostly empty. I gave her a packet of arugula seed and showed her the scatter sow method. She hasn't bought a container of greens since. That was 3 seasons ago. The one thing to know, these greens, especially arugula and spinach, bolt quickly in heat, same as lettuce. This is a cool season crop, spring and fall. In summer, switch to heat-tolerant varieties like Malabar spinach, or just accept that you're growing different things in July. What you're seeing here is a 12-inch wide strip between 2 beds, basically the walking path, filled with scatter-sown arugula. This strip would normally be wasted space. It's producing more greens than one person can eat in a week. Alright, here's what I promised you. The companion planting trick. And before I explain it, let me be clear. This isn't the plant basil next to tomatoes because it repels aphids type of companion planting advice that sounds nice and doesn't do much. This is mechanistically sound, and the effect is measurable. Here's the setup. 3 of the vegetables on this list, tomatoes, zucchini, and beans, all depend heavily on pollinator activity for fruit set. Tomatoes need pollinators to vibrate the flowers and release pollen, a process called buzz pollination. Zucchini needs pollinators to move pollen from male to female flowers. Beans, to a lesser extent, but still benefit. Poor pollination equals fewer fruits. Pest. This is one of the top reasons home gardeners get mediocre yields even when their plants look healthy. Here's the household item. Borage. Not exactly a household item, but stay with me. A packet of borage seed costs about $2 at most garden centers or online, which is the same as buying a bottle of something at the grocery store. Borage is an edible herb with star-shaped blue flowers that bloom prolifically from midsummer straight through fall. It is one of the highest pollinator-attracting plants you can put in a garden. Bees, specifically bumblebees, which are the primary buzz pollinators for tomatoes, are attracted to borage at a rate that genuinely looks excessive once you see it. I'm talking 10 to 15 bees per plant on a warm afternoon. Plant 1 or 2 borage plants near your tomatoes, zucchini, and beans. So on. What happens is that the bees are drawn in by the borage, and while they're in that area, they work your fruiting crops too. You're essentially renting bee attention with a $2 seed packet. The second benefit: borage is a dynamic accumulator. It has a deep taproot that pulls minerals like calcium and potassium up from lower soil layers and concentrates them in its leaves. When those leaves die back, or you chop them and drop them as mulch, those minerals release into the upper soil layer where your vegetable roots are feeding. It's basically a free, slow-release fertilizer running in the background. Third benefit, and this is the one I didn't expect: borage is edible. The flowers taste mildly of cucumber. You can put them in salads, freeze them in ice cubes for drinks, or just eat them off the plant while you're wandering around the garden. Which I do regularly with zero shame. 1 $2 packet of seed. Increased pollination across 3 crops. Soil improvement over time. Free edible flowers. And the plant self-seeds, so once you have it, you essentially have it forever. It will come back every year without you replanting it. That's the bonus. Simple, cheap, and stacked. So let's bring this home. 6 vegetables. All of them cheaper to grow than they are to buy. All of them doable in a typical home garden with existing space. And 1 $2 seed packet at the end that makes the whole list work better. Here's the one thing I want to leave you with. The grocery store is very good at making vegetables feel convenient. You walk in, you grab the bag, you go home. But you're paying a markup on that convenience that adds up to hundreds of dollars a year. For produce that is usually older, less nutritious, and genuinely less flavorful than what you can grow yourself. You don't have to grow everything. Start with 2 or 3 from this list. See what it does to your grocery bill and your relationship with what you're eating. Then expand from there. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 6 are you already growing, and which one surprised you most to see on the list? Drop it down below. I read every comment in the first 24 hours. If this was useful, subscribe. We do this kind of practical numbers-first gardening content every week. Hit the bell if you want it when it drops, and if you know someone who's still buying arugula in a plastic container, send them this video. I do them a favor. Go grow something.